Honorable guests, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. On the behalf of Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, I welcome you all at the public talk titled Dynamics of Pakistan's Energy Security. Before we proceed with the formal proceedings, I would request Qari Sahib to recite a few verses from the Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد صدق الله العظيم.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us Dr. Gulfaraz Ahmed as the guest speaker. He is a gold medalist from NUS, MS and PhD from Stanford University. He has served as a federal secretary in the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Resources. Moreover, he has served at various key positions including chairman of OGBCL, chairman of National Electric Power Regulatory Authority, NEPRA, chairman of Oil and Gas Regulatory Authority, OGRA, and member Civil Nuclear Power Regulatory Authority. He has also undertaken various consultancies including with the UN bodies and member of various consultative groups on energy. Currently, he is working with Murray Petroleum as an advisor for research and development. He has various publications and articles to his credit in renowned journals and magazines. Before we listen to our guest speaker, I request Director General Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad, Ambassador Azaz Ahmed Chaudhary for his welcome remarks. Sir.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A very warm welcome to all of you for this public talk. Our guest today, as he has just been introduced, is Dr. Gulfaraz Ahmed, former Federal Secretary for Petroleum and Natural Resources. May I extend to you, sir, a very warm welcome. The topic for today's public talk is important, especially for Pakistan, as we have recently gone through some of the worst energy crises in our history. The shortfalls of energy became a major impediment to economic development. Even today, we experience these shortfalls, though at a much lower level than in the past. Power shortages cost billions to the economy and inconveniences to the domestic consumers. We had organized a public talk in April this year, if you recall, by an experienced former director of the World Bank, Mr. Ziad Al-Haddad, who has kindly graced this event today. And he educated us about resolving Pakistan's energy dilemma, a critical starting point, and the role of CPEC. After Mr. Al-Haddad's talk, we received a very positive feedback of the event, and we are therefore pleased to host the second talk on this important subject, this time by a former Secretary Petroleum, Mr. Gulfaraz Ahmed. There will be another one that we will probably do by an academic, or we'll think of something else, and we'll publish this three-part series, one from an international perspective, the other from a practitioner, and the third one that I'm trying to figure out which one, and then we'll publish at the end of the year a full monograph so that we can share it with the concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, energy is the bloodline of industry and economy, and no country in the world can develop without achieving energy security. Power supply deficits in our country have been exacerbated by several factors: fluctuating oil prices in the international market, phasing out subsidies, and circular debt, to name a few. We understand the government is taking diverse measures to circumvent this crisis. Expansion and refurbishment of the existing power plants, induction of new ones, and encouragement of renewable energy are some of such measures. Most of the power projects under CPEC have already been completed or are nearing completion. This has helped us in addressing our energy shortfalls to quite an extent. For future energy supplies, Pakistan can meet some of its demand from projects like CASA and TAPI, and if the US sanctions get lifted from IP gas pipeline. On balance, power creation is one area where considerable progress has been made in the past few years. However, transmitting all that generated power to the industry and households with minimal pilferage and minimal losses is the real challenge. We would therefore need to take an expansive view of both demand and supply sides of the equation. Consumption patterns and future needs of all consumer segments would need to be assessed, along with potential implications for the consumers of the energy choices that we as a country make. The International Renewable Energy Agency has noted the absence of an integrated energy plan in Pakistan. We certainly need to develop a strategic plan. I hope that this talk will stimulate our thinking further on this important topic of energy security, which is so vital for the present and future of Pakistan. Thank you all once again for gracing this occasion, and may I now invite you, Dr. Gulfaraz, to kindly commence your public talk. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Master Azad Ahmad and very dear friends of mine sitting right here, ladies and gentlemen, it's indeed both an honor and opportunity to be here and share some thoughts with you. Ambassador Azad has so beautifully summed up the importance of this topic that perhaps my comments will look peripheral. Now, there's no doubt, as he has introduced, that you cannot overemphasize the importance of energy. It's very important for the developed countries because that's how they can develop, because of energy. And it is very important for developing because it's only through greater, more effective and efficient use of energy that they can generate wealth and eradicate poverty. So it's important for all. I may also say that because Foreign Secretary has had a very high profile foreign service, that this energy being the largest global trade, it is also a matter of great global diplomacy. I may also say that that at this point in time, we do hear a lot about energy transformation. And that is because all of you are aware the threats to climate. Those threats are materializing. We're living through the consequences of climate change. And therefore, belatedly, we are now thinking of transforming energy, not reducing the use of energy. Energy use will continue to increase, but we need to transform it and go more towards this energy which is benign to the environment, which has less green gas emissions. So energy transformation is actually adding to the importance of energy. As far as Pakistan is concerned, I consider Pakistan, my own viewpoint, at the crossroad of development. It is high time that we did that. With over 220 million people and 70% of them vibrant, youthful individuals, and the highly strategic location of the world that we keep referring to, that justifies us to develop and at least overcome our poverty, improve our health and education. So when we are, according to my thinking, at the crossroad of development, energy becomes of paramount importance. So, if you schematically what I've written there, the energy security adds to economic security, that then signifies the nation as national security. And once you do that, then once again it beats up the energy security, because the energy security gets to a next level and the loop goes round and round. There's no way that you can emphasize the importance of energy. Now, as I alluded to, Pakistan is at an historical cusp of energy security. I do see, from my point of view, we achieving energy security. Some elements of that Ambassador Azaz alluded to in his comments. We have challenged, but we are at a cusp that we could achieve energy security. I'll try to dilate on this theme. As precursor, most of you are very, can you all read this at the back?
Yes.
I just want to make, share a sentiment that it has become my habit that I like to engage eyes along with the ears to capture the mind. And therefore, I do use colorful slides, and I make sure that I'm never below size 24 font, because in international and national things, this is the minimum that you can read. So if you can read at the bottom, this is for you to scan. The last part of this comment that I will just dilate on, it was middle of 1990s, 1995 to be exact, when Pakistan signed MOU with Turkmenistan and Iran for interstate gas pipeline. I have lived through some of the most dynamic period of those pipelines. I have entered into, on behalf of Pakistan, signed the understandings and even, in fact, agreements with Turkmenistan and Iran. So I can tell you that we've been very unfortunate that one or the other superpower would come in the way of one or the other pipeline, and that is how Pakistan's energy security was denied, because Pakistan is a gas-based economy. Our largest asset in the energy sector is that progressively developed gas transmission distribution infrastructure. Not too many countries have it. When a lady switches on a burner in the village of Miawali, she's connected with the national grid. So, with that asset, we should have built on gas supply, and one of the ways was to ensure those pipelines, because at that time the price was low. I signed the agreement with Turkmenistan, $1.65 per million BTU flow, $2.05 maximum cap. And those things, if materialized, we wouldn't be talking about Pakistan's energy security. So that is just in passing. I will also say this thing. It's not that we've been saddled with this burdensome energy crisis all the time. It's not that it's not in our bones to be able to take care of our energy needs. We have had periods when we did achieve energy security. We did understand the subject and its importance. And take, for example, that unfortunate October 11, 1999, when that thing happened, the military takeover, we sat with 3,500 megawatt of surplus power and 1,500 million cubic feet of gas for which there was no market. So actually, we were, not that we needed to, some of my colleagues, the secretary, thought it better to export power to you. But then, from 2000 to 2010, that first decade of the century, all the projects which, energy projects, be they pipelines, be they development gas fields, be they hydro projects, be they refineries, all kinds of projects which were in the pipeline, they came out, they matured, nothing was added, and that's how the crisis set in, which continues to parallel us today. So it's not been always that we were listening. And the last thing I may just say, that energy security does not really mean energy self-sufficiency. That's also not the true picture. Take the case of Japan. Imports 95% of the energy it uses and enjoys full energy security. Take it on the other side of Algeria, Nigeria, exports oil but suffered from severe energy security. So it is not just the only the self-sufficiency part. I like to flash this slide as a starter. If you see this, it's a very interesting slide. These are the commercial fuels. In 1850, when of course coal was just beginning to make the inroads, from 1850 to 2010, 160 years of the energy story captured here. I don't want to go into this busy slide, but from 1850 to 1950, for 100 years, the energy consumption growth was linear, flatly linear. Then something happened 1950, from 1950 took off. And this is exponential growth. 10 times the average yearly growth in this 50 years compared to the previous. And would that go without any consequence, this 10% increase? No. This spike is what created OECD. And therefore, energy played the rightful role of enabling some part of humanity to become highly developed and be grouped as OECD. Now, I like to play with another map here. This is the political map of the world. The countries' names are not written. And I would like to add a wiggly line. This wiggly line is by my shaky hands. I do this line, and then this is the energy consumption per capita divide. Those countries that consume more divides from those countries that consume less. And then further on, I went on to GDP per capita, and the same line that divides the world, energy consumption per capita, same line divides the world, GDP per capita. This is so practically, this is how it has happened, and this importance. So wealth leads to, energy leads to wealth generation, and you know wealth is needed for poverty reduction. I may also at the very outset mention something about Pakistan's strengths and challenges. It's not that Pakistan suffers entirely from energy weaknesses. It has its strengths, and those are very outstanding strengths. And the first one, it has countrywide electric and especially gas infrastructure, I alluded to before. When I say countrywide, not every country has countrywide infrastructure. Take, for example, our neighbor India, that one stretches the mind to refer to these days because of their, you know, what they're doing in Kashmir. They're a much larger country than us. It's state grid. The electric grid, state grid, and interstate connection is very limited. But in our case, the power can flow from one end of the country to the other end of the country, wherever the load centers are. We don't realize, but those founding fathers, that they created this concept of national grid, did a great service for us. Take, for example, the gas. I don't want to go more into detail. We have one of the most well-spread gas infrastructure in the country, and now these pipelines are indicating the LNG infrastructure where the two FSRUs are creating 3 more are planned, and now this is the Pakistan's power transmission grid. Once again, countrywide, we have 500 kV grid stations which are cross-cutting the country, and 220 grid stations. But work on grid augmentation is part of CPC energy projects that Ambassador alluded to, that are evacuation capacity, and that asset was created, but it wasn't really kept updated, and now I think some attention is going there. This was the first strength of Pakistan. Second, large, still untapped hydro power and water storage potential. And that, if you look at this table, it's nearly 30,000 megawatts of potential hydro only on the Indus River, apart from the River Chilka. Then prospective geology with proven hydrocarbon potential. In fact, the very first well in search of hydrocarbon in this part of the world took place 7 years after the very first well ever in the history in the United States. It was 1866 when the first well was drilled by the government, British government in Miyawaki. So the history has been very old, and they picked a potwar because it's uplifted plateau, and generally oil and gas are present in uplifted plateaus. And if you talk about that, this is the yet to find, yet to find oil and gas. It is about 1 billion barrels of oil and about 10 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. This is yet to be found in the areas which are still under exploration. But a lot of areas that we have not yet opened to exploration, because either they are frontier areas, there's no, when I say frontier area, it's not geographical frontier, it is geological frontier, there's no information, or there's some security concern. This is the area which is still under active exploration, so hopefully we don't have disappointments on that too. Then you have large solar. People in Pakistan during summer keep cooking in the heat, and therefore they can convert that solar. Also wind potential, little wind corridor. Some challenges or weaknesses in the energy sector. One, that we have very low energy consumption per capita, and that is 1/5 of the average of the world. We need to consume more so that we generate. But not to say that we can't even meet our needs even at the present level of energy consumption per capita. But your challenge is that you've got to increase this thing. High energy intensity, that we are not too efficient in converting energy into wealth, and that's where one way that you can achieve more out of the same energy is by achieving energy efficiency or reducing energy intensity. Increasing dependence on imported oil, the foreign fuels. We had entire dependence on imported oil. We have been generating 39% of our power using oil, which is the least suitable fuel in the world for power generation, both for cost and environmental law. And countries like America don't even generate 1% of power using oil. They dread it because it becomes too expensive. Our economy kept stressed with nearly 40% generation of power with oil, and that may be one of the single factors of our growing poverty. Excessive losses, these are transformations, this is a proper everything, but theft is something which we must be able to control. It's only governance. Ambassador Azad Ahmad alluded to governance, yes, in the energy sector, unless your energy utilities are efficient, solvent, making money in the present day problems, you don't have a future. When Churchill had said that as long as the justices and ministers in their courts, they would survive. Today, as long as utilities are efficient and solvent, you will go. It's just as simple. I just thought, once again, I alluded to before, because we should not really be looking at our incapacity more in handling energy. During the time when we used to have 5 years planning periods, and I think it was 8 5-year plan which was with determination executed, 9th was when we started tapering off, and then there's no 5-year plan. We had fairly strong dynamic energy sector because it was backed by a very well thought out 5-year plan. So I thought I'd like to give you just, we were faced with a challenge very bigger than today, and how did we meet it? What was the need? We had very high dependence on imported oil. We have been having that. We had serious balance of payment situation because there were economic sanctions left on us after the 98 nuclear tests, and besides, UNESCO had come out with a report that the lead pollution in Karachi had reached a level where it would affect the development of infants' brain. So with that backdrop, we boldly changed our primary energy mix. And I give you a comparison. Since I was the Federal Secretary at that time, I wrote a policy paper which is contained in 1998 yearbook issued by the ministry, where I gave a 10 years optimal strategy, and that was to cut down oil. So in 10 years, from 43.9% oil usage came down to 30%, nearly 14% of reduction of oil, most of it imported. And the gas share went up by more than 10%, which was indigenous and local, for which we needed the market. And so...
And that trend is continuing?
No, that unfortunately is how you were able to meet the consequences of those economic sanctions, the threat. The world, particularly the key players of the world, thought that by putting economic sanctions post-1998, Pakistan will come down to the knees and probably part with the nuclear assets. But we managed that very effectively. I've been in the center of energy management during those crises. I was the person who was sent to Saudi Arabia to negotiate a special arrangement and all those things, so I'm very aware of it. Or when people, the foreign diplomats used to come and see me and express concern, how would we continue? I may indicate, I never knew how oil or petroleum products used to come to the country. But those days, I used to be woken up at 12 o'clock midnight that so-and-so ship does not want to unload until LC is open, and we had no money to open the LC, the ship used to go back. So we have seen those days, but we survived, and we have the ability to survive in the future also. One of the things which that plan did, how did we cut down nearly 14% of the oil use, imported oil? We looked at where all are we using oil, and most of the oil at that time was being used in the automotive sector, in vehicles, not in power generation at that time. So we had to cut down, and that is how we launched. Pakistan launched the use of natural gas in the automotive sector, 97, as an initial idea. And I want to tell you, in 10 years' time, 2010, if you look at the global statistics, they tell Pakistan became the global leader in use of natural gas in automotive sector. In 3 counts, total volume of gas that went to CNG, total number of vehicles running in CNG, and 63% of the total vehicles in the country on CNG. The world looked at it with great, in fact, admiration on one hand, and America today is trying to increase use of gas. China is trying to increase use of gas. I have been invited from so many places, Pentagon to help introduce CNG in Afghanistan, of all the places from Israel's Prime Minister's Secretariat, that we would want to move into LNG. Would you come along and present a paper? They even said that you would probably win $500,000 prize because we think that your paper would win that. I couldn't go for a different reason. But that was something that I just want to tell you, you became the envy of the world in the energy sector. So we have passed that we will replay again in the present crisis, and Karachi. In 97, the report said that the lead pollution has gone to the level to affect the brains. And 2008, 10 years later, number of vehicles multiplied many times, the ambient air quality in Karachi improved. You couldn't put a dollar value on it. That's because we introduced CNG user vehicles in transport sector. This saga of this, because I feel that it's not there forever with us, the energy security. I call it saga because it got somehow or the other hijacked. How and when did we get into this lingering quagmire by gross neglect of energy sector from 2000 to 2012? Why did, and this is, I alluded to, this is an energy pipeline, and I'm talking about 2000. It was full. All these projects of major consequence, they include refineries, they include pipelines, they include gas field development, they include hydro projects. All these projects matured out of the pipeline and commissioned. Pipeline became empty woefully 2008 and remained empty till in 2013 the Pakistan-China economic corridor started filling the pipeline. So you should look at that period of either neglect or misfortune that the energy crisis is endemically facing us all the time. We can manage, we have managed, and we will be able to manage that. We'll overcome. Now, gas. I also perhaps should have mentioned that Pakistan's energy economy is gas-based energy economy. And this is the envy of the world. The best fuel in the world from environmental point of view, from the once the infrastructure is there, from the reliability point of view, is natural gas. And you were lucky that your economy was natural gas based, nearly 50% of the primary energy coming from natural gas. But in 2000, if you are a little bit more curious, if you look up Minister Petroleum's energy book 1998, where I have given the optimal strategy for a decade, and I said that if we went into automotive sectors to cut down imported oil and create a market for our available natural gas, then we will have to start thinking of importing natural gas well after the start of the century. By 2005, the import should be coming. So that in fact didn't happen. And this is the picture. The crisis, the energy crisis that you see is actually precipitated only because of shortage of natural gas. Natural gas went short, power plants couldn't get the natural gas, they started using imported, expensive fuel, the fuel oil, very dirty fuel oil. The power started becoming expensive. It became short because you could not import enough to, your economy would go under. So that was the gas shortage was the starting point of the energy crisis. And therefore you had to look at this, the maroon curve above is the demand curve. where today is nearly over 8,000, unconstrained demand curve. And the blue line below is the indigenous gas. We were actually running into a very serious shortfall, and this LNG import initiative is one of the most foraging initiatives in this period when we're trying to recover out of it. We are planning to go up to 6,000 from 4,000 million cubic feet a day with LNG to nearly 7,000 million. We are not yet there with LNG, but we are half a mark, and we are hoping to meet the. I just want to flash this to you that the last year, 2017-18, the primary energy supply increased by 8.4%, and the consumption nearly 10%. So that's indicating to you that yes, we are recovering. When the supply increases nearly 9%, it's a recovery mode. Now here I want to talk to you about something very important. When the energy analysts use this term energy security, what do they mean? Not in a generic sense. They have a very specific model in mind, and this is that model. The energy security is a function of two things. Energy intensity, which is the inverse of efficiency. And second, energy imports as a fraction of total exports. Two parameters. How efficient you are in converting energy into wealth, that is one parameter. And second, how much you export so that you can afford the import of energy. So essentially exports and efficiency. This is a two-sum matrix, and the first quadrant, if you look at the first quadrant, those mathematically gifted people, they know which is the first quadrant in the left-hand corner. That's the first quadrant. This is the first quadrant. Here, your total import of energy is within 50% of your total exports. And you are among the top 50 countries in energy efficiency. This is a quadrant of effective energy security. You can even absorb the shocks of the international price of energy, like Japan is able to do that. So this is the most dreaded quadrant, the fourth quadrant, where the energy import is more than 15% of the total exports, and you are in the second half of the median of energy efficiency. Pakistan has been sitting all around like this, there was only once that Pakistan did come close to this 15% line was in 2016, and that is when the oil price crashed because we depend very heavily on oil. So, if you were to wish, how can Pakistan be once again here? Pray and wish for another oil price crash. Our energy security hangs by the thin thread of the international price of oil. We have no control. Now, a positively changing power generation mix, because what was plaguing our energy sector was high dependence on imported fuel oil-based generation. And first of all, we had up to 2015, 7% of the energy was being generated using HSD, highly, highly expensive fuel. So, Indonesia, in one of the islands, was using HSD to generate power, and the Prime Minister took a decision, and they developed an FSRU in 5.5 months, giving incentive to the developer, and he says, every day you save me generation of power from diesel. With this imported LNG, I save so much. So you can see diesel was replaced in 2015 by first batch of LNG, and that scourge is gone. Then the fuel oil is now coming down. We had projected 2021 to come down to 14% generation by fuel oil. We achieved this year 8%. We have come way down. We have increased generation LNG, and when you burn LNG in those turbines which have 62% thermal efficiency, LNG's generation is less than 1/3 the cost of oil for the fuel oil. The natural gas, whatever available, hydel, they're pretty hefty. Coal has just come in as an intermediate cost fuel. It has picked up very hefty, 15% in 2009, and nuclear. My friend, Mr. Bhatt, who has been one of the founding fathers of that nuclear energy capability, I interacted with his predecessor, Fatsa, and peace be upon him, and him is developing, and I'll allude more to nuclear later, and the renewable is also picking up more than a percentile. We include renewable solar energy gas, which is reusable or renewable. And this is now our import, our power generation fuels. This down below is the yellow line, is the LNG. So the largest imported fuel for power generation now is LNG, which is at this point in time out of the imported fuel the best fuel. So we are in the right direction, actually reaching somewhere. Then there's the intermediate class of coal, and look at 2019 import of fuel oil for power generation is being decreased. Very soon we should import no fuel oil for power generation, and we should even export the fuel oil that is being produced by our refineries. So we are in a very good recovery mode. 39% generation 1 year and 8% generation last year. That is what plagued the energy sector. Here, this is a model which is, I don't think I'm too qualified to make this econometric model, but I did because I didn't see anywhere. This is how the three curves are, energy requirement and the rate of economic growth. And there's three curves there, 5% down below, blue line, 6.5% intermediate growth, maroon line, and green line 8%. If you really look at where do you stand in terms of the history of development, you should be staying on the green line all the time, and we should have the capability to come. As far as and these are the energy supply. If your energy supply is like this, then you can grow only 5%. If your energy supply improves, so what's happening that you are fortunately for a few years you have already taken off from the lowest curve, and you are midway. At this point in time, the energy supply supports 6% growth now. So energy supply is no more an excuse for our lack of economic growth. Now we have to look into some other areas and try to do that. This is the curve of the energy supply growth, and you can see that it's picking up, and that is what is creating this fortunate departure above the 5%. So with the present energy supply and trend, we should be able to aim at 6.5% economic growth, which is possible. Next indicator is the power capacity. And you can see here that for a long time your power capacity stagnated. A little bit of increase, again stagnated, and from 2015, financial 15, you're growing. Already more than 10,000 megawatt of power has been added, which is a very new and very dependable capacity. And generally 2.5 to 3 points were taken off from our economic growth because of this lack of installed capacity. And now fortunately, that's building up, and it's not only the capacity, so is the generation itself picking up. This is now generated power. Actually, generation is picking up higher than even the capacity line because of various other triggers. And then, to some of you who are a little bit aware of the generation, this year, 19, July 2019, we generated 142,000 megawatt of power. And actually, we used to hope to cross 100. So you can see again a bright line. Here I want to flash another thing. It's not only the energy, the industrial economy that you should be targeting. So far we've been talking only industrial economy, and we are chasing the industrial economy. We can never reach because the gap is increasing. The industrially developed countries increase faster the industrial economy than we. There's a new economy which has entered the play, and that is the knowledge economy, which is less intensive in energy, which depends mostly on human resource, the brain power, and we should have plenty of them. And therefore, a new factor of knowledge economy growth, this is a correlational linkage. It's not a strong correlation building up, but Pakistan has been moving up from this to this line, and is fast moving in this internet connectivity, because that indicates is one of the parameters which is indicating the thing. And what I have a sentiment that I want to share with you, and this is a very meaningful sentiment. If you try to take it down to your thinking, Pakistan could skip the lost ground. Which lost ground? Industrial economy. Skip it. Forget it. You can't catch up. And leapfrog, you leapfrog by jumping over the ground that you haven't covered. Leapfrog into knowledge. That is a way that you can catch up. And to my mind, the very indication that 5G is going to be experimented in Pakistan is a great promise. As quickly as possible, latch onto 5G, skip the lost ground, leapfrog into knowledge economy, and give a respect to the humanity that lived in this country. Now, I had mentioned to you that the UNESCO report that we had, we switched on to natural gas in the vehicles. But something adverse has happened, and I wanted to flag that because you people can certainly pick it up. This is the motor spirit. As the word says, it's used only in motors, vehicles. And the import of motor spirit went up in 4 years, doubled from 2.5 metric tons to 5 million tons per year. Imported motor spirit. And someone got the most damaging bright idea. You have gas shortage, switch off CNG. And then start importing motor spirit. So you spend more money on importing motor spirit. It was more expensive to the vehicle users, and you ended up again burdening the environment. And that CNG industry, which had become the rival of the world, or the world has started becoming very envious of it, it went down and a lot of people were laid off. Highly counter-economical, highly counter-wisdom, counterproductive. You see how if somebody gets an idea and nudges the policy, and if it's not a good idea, how damaging it could be. To me, it's been drastic from the first day they did it. I've been crying about it. So, this is a policy conundrum. There should be a ban on import of motor spirit for use in vehicles. You have LNG, The LNG is far cheaper in CNG than water spirit. LNG is far cheaper to import than water spirit. So such policy conundrums don't deserve to exist. They need to be taken out. I'm coming to another area, which this is the chart is from Business Recorded, and this is how the capacity price on the power plant. Capacity price, as you know, has to be paid whether you utilize power or not. It's increasing very fast, and he calls it PFI. No, it's not a PFI. PFI was when you did not have the capacity. Now when you have the capacity, you have to manage the capacity price productively. So it's not PFI. If all the generated power or all the capacity is positively utilized, it will give a boost to the economy. So before that, we could provide the power. Today we can provide the power, but if we have a mounting burden of capacity price, if it can be productively utilized, your economy will be able to sustain that capacity. If no, then the capacity price will send us. So one has to be very aware of that thing. How some random idea that came to my mind, how can you generate the productive demand? And I may indicate here that the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, the first phase is over, which was infrastructure phase, which was the power infrastructure, more than 10,000 megawatt power plants. Early harvest are about 10,000, 11,000 are already there, more are in the way, and then the communication infrastructure. And I just want to tell you, today, as we speak right now, Sakhar Multan 6-lane motorway, 400 kilometers, is being opened to traffic. Motorways are being opened now from Karachi to Lahore and from Gwadar up country. Extremely critical infrastructure. This infrastructure has come about. It will cut down time, fuel for moving the thing, and that should boost the economy. Hopefully, we should be able to manage that. And the second phase is starting, which is the phase for industrial development, trade development, agriculture development, and setting up of the 9 special economic zones. It is this idea of 9 special economic zones at selected places all over the country, which are supposed to generate productive demand for power, which hopefully will be able to so-called the productive capacity, the power capacity installed that we have, and we would not have to actually stand the rigor of coming up with the ability to pay for the power plant. Then this is stimulate the industry, and this is also a very relevant idea that this, if the industry is stimulated, the industry that went under because of the so I just want to allude to, these are very current developments in the maybe a week, 10 days old, the Prime Minister who had given a stimulus to the industry for 1 year in order to increase the export, and they fixed the price of our LNG at $6.50 per million BTU and electricity at 7.5 cents per unit to give them a stability of their balance sheets. And that was given for 1 year. You have also seen a wee bit increase in the export, which is very encouraging. He is extending it for another 4 years up to 2024, and that stimulus to the energy, to the industry is going to be there. Then retired old power plants running on RFO. Most of them are 30% thermal efficiency, whereas the new LNG-based power plant at 62% thermal efficiency. So you can, that's why LNG generated power at 62% is less than 1/3 of the RFO because of multiple factors. The retired old plants with surplus power situation follows strictly the economic dispatch now. You couldn't do economic dispatch before because you didn't have enough power. Today you have enough power. And in forced economic dispatch, that will force efficiency on the generators and upgrade power grid. That is something that Ambassador Ejaz alluded to. Sorry. And this is the latest, once again, a new circuit of power connection. No, sorry, I have perhaps missed some. The new circuit of power transmission from Metiari to Multan, which is being done as the first private transmission circuit which is being developed in the country. And Pachuco is the Chinese company. Their ship is $1.7 million. They shipped all the material last week from China, and is going to be a ultra high voltage direct current transmission sector, and it will connect all the coal-based power plants in Sindh to the consumption center in Punjab. So it's a very well-based power plant. It will be commissioned in the early part of 2001, and it is a way to go about the power transmission, because this is very high technology system. It's a direct line, it's not alternate line, and because of ultra high voltage, a direct line, the losses will be minimal. Then the other thing that I'm very concerned about is discos. All the power that leaves the generation actually gets dispensed by the discos, and if you had efficient discos, the whole channel would be backed up properly. One thing that they need to reduce losses in their own areas by better technology. Don't only burden the human endeavor. Don't burden only those poor operators that go and repair. No, use better technology. There are better ways of reducing the leakages, the better materials to develop connections which will not fail. Go a little up in the money, but then ultimately you save, because that is trouble-free. So like in gas, we have been using age-old technology in leakage proof. And Australia had 1% leakages, whereas we had double digit. Australia went to help Bangladesh in managing leakages and brought them down to 3%. But there are Teflon, better quality, little bit higher in price, leakage material. You use that instead of the old model. So there are ways to do that, and it is economical, very cost effective way to do that. And then the last thing which I personally feel is doable, not the privatization of discos. There are political issues. We can tell each disco, buy power out of the revenues you collect every month. Like for example, Islamabad collects 98% revenues. They can buy 98% power, and 2% revenue which they are not collecting, on those feeders they can get a little bit nagging load shedding. So just tell them, collect your revenues. If you got, in some cases, 2 cases, like Sakhar, like Peshawar, collection may be 70%, buy 70% of power, and give the feeders power without any interruption, where you get 100%. So a little bit of administrative control, you can take care of these things. And control theft, which is, I think I have come across my animation, I lost the track of it, and therefore you saw those slides. Here I just want to flash you power generation mix, July 2019. You use 33% power hydel, because it's the hydel season, 24% power LNG, and this thermal efficiency is very economical, 14% with middle caste coal, 11% with your own gas, 6% with fuel oil. So we're moving where we should have been there from the very beginning. That's why when I told you that we are at the cusp of energy security, that if you see some of these telltale signs, that you are coming out. Strategic opportunities of adjusting priorities. Time to phase out public sector power plants that have low thermal efficiency, 30% thermal efficiency, and need heavy maintenance. There's no need to keep them on the list inventory. Sufficient generation available now. Go to the crucial merit-based. You know what had happened? The affliction to us was we were forced to pick up whatever we generated. And since the fuel cost was passed through, this is one element on which I feel very strongly. I can give you when did it happen, how did it happen, why it's still carrying on pass-through fuel. Nowhere in the world you would make the power generator insensitive to fuel efficiency, except in Pakistan, where you say, look, we'll give you a fixed price for power, and fuel cost is passed through. Whether you spend more or less fuel, it is not of consequence. So we should now start including the fuel cost and then working their overall cost and dispatch them on merit. Beneficial. If you can now manage LNG beneficially, that is one way that you can come out of the quagmire. Manage LNG. And fortunate for us, for the next few years, the energy market, international market, is the buyer's market. There's surplus capacity. And you know one thing, that you get spot LNG close to Karachi under $5 million BTU. So all the energy suppliers are now envying. And may I also tell you as an energy analyst, the fastest growing fuel in the world is natural gas. Within natural gas, the fastest growing component natural gas is LNG. Within LNG, the fastest growing component of LNG is the spot LNG, where very soon you will not need to do long-term contract. So we are in a buyer's market of the cleanest fuel coming to our home, because spot is at your doorstep, and you should take full advantage. So there are ways that you should take advantage of it. One is that those 62% thermal efficiency plants, which are at the moment 3,600, but going very soon to 4,800 megawatts, they are the top beneficial users of energy. 62% thermal efficiency. Then making CNG shortfall. Instead of importing water spirit and using in vehicles, you give the second priority of LNG to CNG shortfall. Because at the country level, you import less in terms of dollars for anything. And you clean the streets and you revitalize that industry which is supporting hundreds of thousands of workers. Then after that, the thermal, the priority should go to the medium thermal efficiency gas plants to eliminate or curtail use of RFO. So then you attack RFO. RFOs are not being used in 62% high thermal efficiency plants. They are being used in middle efficiency. Attack them also because it is beneficial. Then selective industrial gas demand shortfall. You want to feed the industry all the gas they need. If there's a shortfall, since the industry is productively using natural gas, fill the shortfall in this order of priority by LNG. Then comes winter is approaching. As the winter approaches, past December, again the energy administrators, the Federal Secretary Energy and other things, they stop losing sleep. because the politicians from all parts of the country start waving the red flag, there's no gas in our burners. So there is a priority to keep the domestic fuel supply. Also, I just want to throw to some of you that if you carry out an objective analysis in the case of Pakistan, which is the most cost-effective fuel, domestic fuel in Pakistan is natural. So, even though generally we don't, but it is, so for domestic, you make up all the shortfall of winter peak demand by LNG. Why? Because the winter peak demand takes you into higher slabs. And the higher slab cost is much higher than the cost of LNG. So if people do a little bit of arithmetic, you should have no shortage of natural gas in the country. Limitation is only your LNG handling, and you're soon going to expand the capacity. So LNG management is now the key to your energy management. Opportunity of investment, I want to flag here because this will please my colleague Mr. Prarit Bhatt. I said increase nuclear power. I don't want to go into the benefits of nuclear power because sometimes people do dread. What was it? Yokoshima? What was it? Yokoshima? Yokoshima. Fukushima. There was that Chinese company out of Fukushima, so I mixed with it. Fukushima. This is the 1100 megawatt K2 power plant in Karachi. K3 is also under construction. K2 would be commissioned in 2022, and it will, between both these power plants, it will nearly be 10% of our power capacity, because the nuclear power plants, being very sensitive in operation, they are operated with attendant care, maximum care. They're always available, except for, and the fuels is one of the most, the least expensive fuel also. And if you have sited them with sufficient factors of safety, you shouldn't have any fear. So these plants, first of all, 60% is the operating life, and our operators, when the first nuclear plant ever, Canoe, Karachi was set up, it was in 60s.
71 it started operation.
And it was supposed to be 20, 30 years.
It is still operating.
It is upgraded, more than double the capacity, and not only is operating, it will continue to operate, so we have the ability to do that. Incidentally, I, as a member of the Nuclear Regulatory Board, the International Atomic Energy Commission said you cannot commission Chashma nuclear power plant 1 of 340 megawatt because you don't have the capacity to operate a modern nuclear power plant. And we did. In 18 months' time, we had them to come over, train multiple operators, and they tested, they qualified, they said, we, by the grace of God, have the capacity to operate nuclear power plants. But in this particular case, it has certain features. This Holon 1000 design, it has a double containment structure. So, with this power plant here, you see a metallic container is being put on a very thick concrete container. Concrete container is all that people mostly use, but it's a double containment in order to make sure that there is no leakage whatsoever. And it is C5, C6 are on the planning board, if not maybe even beyond that, they would be installed in Chashma. With these 4 1100 megawatt nuclear power plants, we will go midway. Our targets are 8,800 megawatt by year 2030, which we think we are on course to achieving, because these 4 power plants are 4,400, which is midway, are those things. So the other opportunities, advanced capacity to install in future, which would go for the 64%. Now they are even claiming on the drawing board of 66% thermal efficiency power plant, whereas you're generating public sector power plants at 30. And for example, those of you who are aware of Pakistan's power generation history, it was a very good thermal balance. 50, 55, 55, 60% was thermal hydro generation and 35, 40% thermal generation. And therefore, the cost was highly controlled and our hydropower plants were long paid off, and our import of fuel and our overloading of environment wasn't there. But in the mid-90s, when we went to the IPPs, thermal IPPs, the equation got upset. There was another nation whose thermal equation, hydro equation got upset in the same time from Malaysia, but then they came back and regained the balance, added more hydropower stations. We need to do that, and at least 50% of our power generation should be hydro, which is our need more from water storage point of view than from power generation point of view. So that you have a bonus, double bonus, at the national economy level. Make more reservoirs, store water, generate electricity as a spin-off, and it will help the economy, help the environment, everything. One thing that I like to flag, there is a revolutionary potential in solar, not in the grid solar, in the rooftop solar. Solar is still not a grid source of generation of power, because if you generate power from Bahawalpur solar power plant and put it into a national grid, 40% of that never gets sold. So already expensive solar power becomes highly overloaded. And if you didn't put that into national grid, all 100% solar power will be available to you. So rooftop solar overcomes that. And you have to actually, this is a revolutionary potential for Pakistan, particularly off-grid communities where you cannot extend the grid, they can revolutionize. And remember, wherever you have the power, you have the internet, and wherever the internet, human brain starts working. Don't worry whether those people are educated or not. Individual brains have the ability to surprise you. So that would be the way to go, high velocity power, and then the evacuation capacity. This is, I talked about evacuation capacity before also, rationalizing power and gas tariff. There is something called commercial tariff based on cost. When you go to the market and you buy, I want this shirt, he says 10,000 rupees, the other one 2,000 rupees. Why? Because it costs me 2,000 rupees. So everything is sold on the basis of cost. Why not utility? And when I conclude, when I give an industrialist power at one point, 2 megawatt of power, which I will give to 10 towns. Imagine the amount of infrastructure that I have to build to distribute power to 10 towns. The losses, thefts. Why is it not that the least cost power purchaser is the industrial, give them tariff based on the cost? People dread that. This is why the poor people will suffer. Poor people will suffer when the economy suffers. So you lose nothing by moving on to your tariffs being based on the cost of power. It is jagging. And if you want to do the subsidy instead of not subsidizing, instead of hiding under the carpet, don't roll the subsidy clearly so that it becomes visible and you start attacking it. That will work. Turning DISCO into cost centers, only buy powers with the revenues they get. There's no privatization involved, nothing increasing capacity and expertise of regulatory bodies. I stand to be burdened if the regulatory bodies are not doing, because both of them I founded When I say I found it, for 5 months I sat in the conference room of Flood Commission, one chair in a huge room when I was founding NEPRA. When you pick up the logos, you pick up the policies, I went around and studied Oxford, the British regulatory body, and developed our regulatory model with the public hearings. But one instant, I don't know if it may take over 30 seconds, I want off. When I was invited by the British government to take a tour of how do they regulate electricity so that we would learn while I was still struggling with the concept. And their chief regulator was Professor Littlechild, Dr. Littlechild. He was heading Oxford. And they told me that I would have a detailed meeting with Professor Littlechild, which was my high water mark objective. I went there, they took me around, and the day when I was supposed to be Littlechild, I sharpened my brain so that I can get something more from him than the time. They said, Professor Littlechild is not available. It crushed my heart. I said, Foreign Office, you gave me the clearance, you invited me. They said, we've been persuading Littlechild. He is at about 150 kilometers away from London. He's grappling with an urgent problem of regulation of power. And therefore, he cannot be disturbed. I realized how powerful the regulator is because the government, UK government and the Foreign Office couldn't persuade him, give him 5 minutes, at least show their face. He did. And I said, plead to him that I want to take a short call with him. And he came on the line. He said, Professor Littlechild, I promise short call. By not meeting me, you conveyed more than what you would have conveyed because now I know how autonomous the regulators are. So that is a requirement. Capacity and autonomy of regulation is extremely important. I found out those. I remain culprit when those institutions are unable to deliver because I built capacity only to the need of that time. And I had the autonomy when I was there because it was only making university that the last president was able to get something done. So those things are extremely important attributes. Either public sector should regulate, but if you want to go to regulators, capacity and autonomy are two pillars on which your energy sector depends. And that's always the case. Investment opportunities I covered. I want to throw, I'm not very determined. It is a half-baked idea. Half-baked idea, and I don't want to, it's just flag a lay idea from my mind. And that is, we follow, it is a very superior model. The British model of administration is that have the generalist bureaucrats, give them enough circulation, they will be able to dispense the administration of the country better than the specialists. Maybe big hole 70 years back. But the world has become now too technical, too specialized. And therefore, you may consider having at least some of these ministries specially endowed in terms of education, in terms of training, in terms of exposure, and create a separate stream of bureaucrats in parallel with the journalists. Journalists must be kept because they are very, very. I just want to cite one personal example. For example, I hope it's not talking about myself. I alluded to this 1998 energy yearbook. I said I created a institution that every year's energy book there would be a policy paper written by Federal Secretary Petroleum himself, not authorized authored by somebody else, by himself. He would like to project his vision how for the next year the energy sector is to be steered. And incidentally, it was the optimal energy strategy contained in 1998 year book, which actually got implemented and made you the world leader in use of natural gas vehicles. And so from 1999, the paper was, even after printing, that paper was deleted, and from there onward, the federal secretaries don't author the papers. It's not their intention. It is how can you author a paper to give a vision for the whole country to see unless you have the feel of the subject. Beyond even the understanding, they can't have it if they're journalists and they rotate it so quickly, they don't know it. So, Professor Gadu could be here. I was finishing my presentation on this slide. And on 25th of August, when I put this slide, there was a news item by Bloomberg, as you know, it's a business house. If China decides to buy the Iranian oil despite the embargo, the price of oil would sink to $30 a barrel. That to me was too much not to flag talking to you. And I said, if wishes were to come true, our energy bill could go down from energy import bill from $12, $6, and economy could come to 10 because it depends on the international price. And I thought this is my closing slide. You'll have to bear one or two more slides. China and Iran flesh out strategic partnership, which is end of August. And what is that partnership? Among other things, in red, China has agreed to buy Iranian oil. So hopefully, the wish may come true. But if that's not all, and if that didn't happen, then Pakistan, for the first time in life, could come close to the energy security oil price crash if that happens. This is in 2020, it could come if wish comes true. And now, while I was wishing that happened, only yesterday, or day before yesterday, Russian State Bank, which keeps a good pulse of the oil, has said that oil price could drop to $25 a barrel by middle of 2020. So it will be a help to Pakistan from blue. And when I conclude, Ambassador Azaz, I have thrown a moral here, and that moral is what grips my heart. I'm sure so will it yours. The poor of tomorrow would not be the poor of the wealth or energy, which are both limited and concentrated, but poor of the knowledge, which is vast and egalitarian in excess. When we are talking about the wealth, you're talking about knowledge. And we should skip the ground, open the brains, human minds of Pakistani, very bright brains. We will have a place. And when I said cusp, I had reasons to be optimistic.